I remain just one thing and one thing only, and that is a clown. It places me on a far higher plane than any politician. Charlie Chaplin, English comic, actor, filmmaker, and composer. All right. Welcome to another morning episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. If you're tuning in live, I want to especially thank you for giving me your time so early. Now, you might be asking yourself, DL, why are you all dressed up? Well, it's election season and it's time to get back into candidate interviews. That means bringing my A game, including my appearance. Thursdays will be my designated candidate day. My goal is to interview as many candidates as I can for any seat in any state. Now, I'll do my best to have as many on live as possible, but let's be honest, 7 a.m. is pretty early, so some of them will be pre-recorded. Today, we're going to head on over to Volusia County, Florida, where Joe Hannoush joins me to discuss his run for Florida State House District number 28. So let's welcome Joe. Joe, how are you?
Good. How are you, DL?
Very well. Thank you for joining me so early.
Yeah, this is my earliest interview, but thank you for putting candidates on. I think it's awesome that libertarians are helping other libertarians reach hopefully some non-libertarians out. Let them know about Edward.
So let's get into it. Introduce yourself to people that may not know you, who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Joe Hannoush here in Volusia County. This is my fourth campaign as a libertarian. I'm heavily involved in my local affiliate here. Yeah, so I'm trying to take over the government so we leave everyone alone.
All right. So let's start with what motivated you to run. So you said this is your fourth. So let's talk about what motivated you to run in the past and why are you running like today? Like what motivated you for this particular seat?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so originally I had been my younger years, my teenage or early 20s years, I leaned kind of more Democrat. I liked them on like immigration. I had friends that were teenagers, underage drinking, smoking, whatever, and I thought they were good people. They shouldn't go to jail, stuff like that. So a lot of what the Democrats said they believed in, anti-war as well. So a lot of what the Democrats said they believed in, I believed in also. So I voted, Democrat. I voted for Al Gore in 2000. I voted for John Kerry, his big anti-war guy in 2004. And then I saw kind of like the history of it, and I was like, they're not really doing what they're saying to do, what they're saying they're going to do. That's the district right there. Yep. So I kind of left them, and I was never a hardcore Democrat, so I believe some things that Republicans believed also. Like I'm pro, less wasteful spending, lower taxes, of course. I had a job at that point. Anyone that gets their first paycheck knows, like, yeah, they some of them turn Republican pretty quick. But a lot of what they said made sense too. So I voted for John McCain in 2008. And around that time, Ron Paul, who a lot of libertarians come from, my best friend at the time told me about like this guy Ron Paul running for president as Republican. So I tuned in, and I wasn't in 100% right away. Some of the stuff you said made sense, but I wasn't in all the way. So about 3 years later, about late 2011, early 2012, I found this online quiz. I don't even know how it happened, but it was the greatest moment in my political life ever. It was called isidewith.com. It still exists. I still encourage people to go there.
Right.
And I did all the questions. Whenever it came out to be like 90%, I was libertarian, right? And the next drop off was 20 points lower. It was Constitution Party. Then another 20-point drop off after that, and it was like Democrats, Republicans, everyone else down there, 50%. So I looked up, Gary Johnson was like the kind of, I don't think he was nominated yet at this point for the LP 2012 nomination, but he was like basically said to be running. And I looked up his stuff, and I agreed with him even more than the LP platform, like 93% or something. So I was hooked. I didn't change my party registration because I had just got bamboozled, I think I'm using that term right, by the two old parties. So I didn't change my voter registration. So I was a small, but I voted Libertarian. in 2012, and then in the 2016 election. So it's like 4 years of being a small L libertarian, but not registered to the party. I was filling out my ballot in 2016. This is the moment I decided to run for office. I voted for Gary Johnson. We had a libertarian here in Florida running for U.S. Senate in 2016. And then, like, down ballot, there was nobody. I mean, it was Republican or Democrat, and I either couldn't find enough information on them, or it was like I disagree with them and I disagree with them. Like, it was just terrible. So I
Right.
decided, well, I'm complaining. I heard myself complaining, right? Which is fine. That's First Amendment. Please do that. I encourage complaining, but put action behind it. Do something about it. So
Right.
at that moment, I was filling out my sample ballot in 2016. I decided I'm going to run for office as a libertarian. And so I changed my voter registration to libertarian after the 2016 election. 4 months later, I was filed to run as a candidate for state house in
Mhm.
2018, back in March of 2017, and the U.S. Senate candidate in 2016 happened to live in my county. So he invited, I talked to him over Messenger during his campaign, and he invited me over to go to visit the local Libertarian Party, which I didn't know that existed. I didn't know there was a state party, local party. I just
Right.
thought there was a national party, right? So I got here. He told me some great things about how to run for office. I'm going to share two of those with you, if you don't mind me doing real quick here.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's the first two things you got to do when anyone's running for office. Number one, read the candidate and treasurer handbook right away for your
Right.
state. Number two, read it again. So, and that was the best advice I still have gotten. Was the first advice to
Right.
read up on the laws? Because I've seen candidates like from the old parties that should know better, right? Not know the laws, and they end up not being able to qualify because they made some legal, error, and they weren't able to qualify. So that was really it. It was really being the change I wish to see. And the reason why I'm still doing it is because I still believe that.
Mhm.
It's not so much that I want to do this; it's that I feel like I'm compelled to do it. I have a duty to, the Constitution, which I always carry with me here. Anyone can call me out on it. The Constitution basically says, like, if you have a tyrannical government, it's your duty to replace it. And I'm trying to do it the peaceful means. That's why I'm running now. If I see a place where I could run for office against tyrannical, people that are going to just grow government, then I feel compelled to do it. And I do it in the Libertarian Party because, first of all, I'm philosophically libertarian. I believe in getting government out of it.
Mhm.
And secondly, I want to build a viable third party. We can't have one party control like we have here in Florida. Republicans control everything here,
Right.
um, or in the in national party. I know that one kind of swings one way or the other, but it's
Right.
usually one party controlling, doing whatever they want at one point.
Okay. So let's talk about one of I believe this is going to be your most recent run. So this would have been for U.S. House Florida District 6. This was in 2022. So I'm going to
Correct.
pull the results up and I got a couple questions for you. So here are your results. You ran a two-way race against Michael Waltz, a Republican. Now you did say this is a Republican stronghold. So in fairness, with the numbers there, but I don't think the numbers were actually that bad. Almost 25% compared to 75%. And so my questions for you is actually just two of them. Tell me the best thing that you did in that run, and then tell me what you would do different, like maybe the one thing for each one.
The best thing, honestly, was kind of organic. It just so happened that there was no Democrat, right, as you mentioned before, and that got local Democrat club in Ormond Beach and a local Republican club in Ormond Beach kind of felt like, you know what, we could talk to this libertarian guy because the Republicans that weren't risking voting for they're not Republican in case and then a Democrat gets in there, and the Democrats had no candidate, so they
Right.
both invited me to speak to their clubs. And I got to talk to them, and hopefully some of them voted for me. Obviously, not enough, but some of them
Right.
voted for me, and they were even like I even gave them my yard signs and my like promo material, my cards and stuff
Hmm.
to hand out, and they did. Like they asked me, they came out to me, and that really just happened just by running. So it wasn't really necessarily. It was by chance. It was not something I tried to do. I didn't know I was going to be heads up. In a congressional race, that's like almost unheard of. But I lucked out, and so I kind of got lucky. But it
Right.
ended up being where I mean, there's a candidate running in for state house here in Florida District 105 down in Brevard County, or not Brevard, Broward County. Josh Walaka. I
Mhm.
hope you have him on soon. He might
Working on it.
yeah, we're Friday at noon, so tomorrow at noon, a little over 20, like probably 30 hours, let's just say, a little less than that. Uh, it's going to be, hard line, deadline qualifying here in Florida, and it's
Mhm.
going to be set. And it looks like he's going to be heads up against the Democrat down there.
Okay.
So what he could do, and what I try to do is I talk to both sides, and have open ears, and well, I'm deaf in one ear, but I had open ear.
Right.
So just listen. And what I wish I would have done actually was probably try to fundraise more. I mean, I was out fundraised $1,000 to one. I'm not
Right.
sure how much of a difference it would have made, honestly, but I just wish I could have. If I would have known ahead of time that I would have been heads up, and I didn't know that until qualifying, so like 6 months or 5 months before the deadline. But if I would have known, and I filed for that one in January of the previous year, so I'd been a candidate for 22 months. Had I
Mhm.
known then, I would have reached out to Democrats, Republicans the whole way. So, but I was lucky enough that I had two campaigns before that where local people already knew who I was, so they reached out to me
Okay.
that way. So it's just run for office, basically.
Gotcha. So the incumbent right now, his name is Tom Leak, Thomas J. Leak. Um, what's your impression of him? What's your general perspective of his time in office? And for people that are tuning in, he is the current representative for this seat, and he is a Republican. So, Joe, tell me what's your perspective of his, you just in general, like what you've observed from him.
Yeah, for full disclosure, he is turned out.
Hmm.
He cannot run for this state representative seat again. He's running for state senate, actually, in my district currently. But I did run against him in my first two campaigns. It was his second and third election that he was going for. And what I observed from him, honestly, in 2018, he handed me a gift. He just handed me a gift on a silver platter. I didn't want the gift. I wish he did give it to me, but he handed me a gift. He was one of those people that voted in favor of SB 7026. Now I know that doesn't mean anything to anybody, but what that bill was the Parkland bill. This bill was the bill here in Florida to raise the age for people to purchase a firearm from 18 to 21. It extended
Hmm.
waiting periods. It enacted red flag laws, and I think it also banned bump stocks, but it was already done national level anyway. So they were just kind of like state codifying it.
Hmm.
So it did those things here, and he voted in favor of it. So I was able to go on interviews and debates and say, I am the Libertarian Party, and me as a candidate are the only pro Second Amendment party and candidate here running in this district.
Right.
So I would say that, and I lost. So it wasn't. I didn't reach as many people as I would have hoped, but I got to say that. I got to be principled. I got to
Hmm.
call out um, the hypocrisy. And another point I made was like during that time, my first campaign, the budget for the state. So it took like 170 years or whatever for the state
Hmm.
of Florida to get to $81 billion annual budget. Since that time, our newest budget is 117 billion. So during his time in office, it's gone up exponentially. These are Republicans. They're supposed to be fiscally conservative.
Right.
Well, they're not. So they're not. They just spend money, tax more. He also voted in favor of the internet sales tax here in Florida.
Hmm.
They didn't reduce the overall sales tax, which would have made the most amount of sense. If you're going to increase sales tax, internet sales tax to kind of make it more sense, more fair, I get that, but decrease the overall sales tax to 6% sales tax to kind of even it out. Make it 5% or something.
Right.
But so it actually is a tax increase. So tax increase, anti-second amendment. It's pretty easy to call them out throughout the last 6 years that I've been paying attention.
Yeah, and, I'm putting it up on the screen now. Here are some bills that, he sponsored. Now, some of these aren't gonna be as interesting to talk about necessarily. General Appropriations Act, we would actually have to, like, get into it to really talk about it. But we can see that, he's put forward one, regarding collective bargaining, compensation for elected officers and judges, Indian Gaming, Revenue Trust Fund. Here's some of the ones that he co-sponsored. Whether or not they made it through is a different story, but like the online protection for minors, which they tried to push here in Florida. And actually, I think that might have actually went through. Maybe not this one HB1, but HB3. I think it actually did go through. Expiration of the mandatory waiting period for firearm purchases. Let's see what else we got here. He's got quite a few of them. Anti, excuse me, anti-Semitism, where he voted or he co-sponsored to define anti-Semitism specifically here in Florida. Emergency refills of insulin, animal foster or adoption. I don't really know why that has to be a state level thing. So there's quite a few here. Safe exchange of minor children. I guess I'm not sure what that one is. Pregnancy and parenting resource website. Again, I don't know from a libertarian standpoint why we would need that to be done at the state level or by government whatsoever. So it seems like he does support a lot of bills that libertarians would not support.
I'd agree with that.
So
And
just
what's funny is, I'll just throw this in here. When I originally filed, and he was starting to go around, no one knew me at this time, right?
Mhm.
This is like 20, probably late 2017. I went to a couple of his events where he was speaking, giving a legislation update or whatever, and he would say he's libertarian. Like, he said that twice that I remember.
Right.
Yeah, and I think he saw me out there and knew who I was. I think I was wearing my shirt too, but like I was actually kind of inside, kind of a little proud, because he was calling himself a libertarian, probably because a libertarian was running against him.
Right. And that's and I think this is a good thing. Like if nothing else, get the other candidates to say that they're libertarian. Now, and chances are they probably aren't.
He's not. No.
Um, and my viewers, my audience knows that I generally don't like the idea of saying so and so is not a libertarian. So I don't make these kind of comments lightly, but politicians, for the most part, who are Republican or Democrat, that like to say they're libertarian are almost always not. Now there's a couple handful that could probably wear the name, but for the most part, not so much.
Yeah, I'd give Thomas Massey and Rand Paul,
Right.
maybe they're on our side, but everyone else, no.
Yeah, pretty much. It's about those 2, and that's about it. Okay, so let's talk about your opponents now. You mentioned fundraising was an Achilles heel, a moment ago. So it looks like, and I'm not going to put this up on the screen, so I'll just tell people you have 2 opponents that are running in the race right now: John Navarra and Bill Partington. John is the Democrat, and Bill is the Republican. You have raised so far $1,200. John Navarra, $7,265, and Bill Partington, the Republican, $67,575. I'm not sure if it's all that's been actually raised, self-funded, if it came from a PAC. I didn't dig in that deep. But here's my question to you with those numbers. What is your plan to compete with these, significant differences in money, at least so far?
Yeah, great question again. Well, it's not new to me. I've done that 3 times already. And I have raised more money since then, so I do have a little bit of money after the qualifying
Right.
fee to budget for things. Obviously, I'm probably going to get a couple more shirts.
Mhm.
I'm probably going to get some yard signs, obviously, some new updated campaign rack cards, if you will. So things like that, and but mostly it's going to be the free stuff,
Okay.
stuff that doesn't cost money. It's going to be writing letters to editor. It's going to be, which they love when you do, by the way. So
Right.
I'm happy to do that because it's free advertising, free name recognition.
Okay.
It's going to be filling out the candidate surveys. Um, like a lot of times there'll be special interest groups like the NRA, Sierra Club. Just the list goes on and on of interest groups that want to get what they'll ask you questions in a survey, and they you send them back whatever, give your opinion on what you're going to do on possible legislation, and then they send it out to their membership. So it's a good way to get your ideals out, the libertarian ideals out to those special interest members. So
Right.
that's a way to reach people. Another one is just showing up to local organizations. If there's a community organization. I've done this before, and I'm going to continue to do it. Just local community organizations that just have like elected officials or candidates come over there. Those are the people that vote too. The people that
Mhm.
show up to their community organizations, meetings, whatever, HOAs. Those are the people. The city or county meetings also. Those are people that vote. So those are the people you want to hit
Mhm.
and show up and get to know your name. Um, Yeah, so what I did before was getting on the radio. We used to have two local radio stations around here. Unfortunately, both the hosts died, and they weren't really replaced. So
Hmm.
that's unfortunate. Kind of, local political radio is kind of a dying art. So once those guys were gone, we've kind of gone. But I am working on. Luckily, the podcast scene is really blowing up, as you well know.
Right.
So there's a local podcast here called the Spoken Truth Podcast of Volusia County, which I've been on 3 times now, so I get a little name recognition from there too. There's other ones that are starting or have started recently. So it's just about getting the free name recognition, just getting it
Got
out
it.
that way.
Okay. Let's compare what you have to let's compare their platform to yours. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up each one of those and we'll just kind of look at what they're saying that is important to them and we'll get your take on it. Like, okay, so like they say this, Joe says this. So let's pull that up on the screen here. So this one is for Bill Partington and this is from his website. So if anybody's worried about me misrepresenting him, can we zoom in on that a little bit?
I can't read
Maybe.
any.
Yeah, I'll read it out loud.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So, like he says, he's got, just broadly speaking, he says Florida jobs, education, family values, seniors, and then I think he has taxes, transportation, Second Amendment, and accountability. So, you know what? Let's do something out of the ordinary. Transportation, investing in infrastructure, recognizing the needs our state roads, waterways, and utilities face in the decades ahead require smart planning and foresight across Florida. So, what's your take on transportation for this particular seat, and what would you be in support of? What would you oppose?
Yeah. First of all, I don't believe in negative campaigning, and I haven't done that in the past. But I will call out hypocrisy.
Hmm.
And in Bill Partington's case, he's my current mayor, my city's mayor.
Okay.
Um, and he has a 20. He's been on the city commission for 20 years. And I know that he doesn't give a whatever about transportation. He will just spend money for whatever his campaign contributors want him to do. He's been I've been in city commission meetings where I've heard um, traffic studies give the rating a D or an F for that intersection or whatever, and it's just approved. So
Mm.
it's very strange to see that he's pro, smart like infrastructure, I guess. But um, yeah, so for roads, I guess this is the libertarian thing. Mum roads.
Right.
Actually, I like what Larry Sharp says about roads. And for those that don't know, Larry Sharp ran for governor of New York twice as a
Hmm.
libertarian. And he had kind of like naming rights, right? Because you'll hear on the radio, if anyone listens to local radios, they'll hear the road traffic update, and it'll be like such and such, ABC Road or whatever has backup traffic. So it's like every hour on the radio, you'll hear it. And those people that listen to radio are voters, right?
Right.
So what I would do is like probably offer naming rights for certain roads that they would the company would pay to maintain rather than taxpayers. This is not going to be like they're going to take it over. They own the roads. It's going to stay government owned roads.
Hmm.
It's simply that business or that corporation or that organization, whatever it is, it could be the Libertarian Party. When want to adopt a road, that's cool. But they would basically flip the bill for whatever that is for like a 10-year contract or something. That would be ideal. I really like that idea when I heard Larry Sharp say it. I would like that, at least, kind of offset some costs.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but I think it would be a good thing. And what's unfortunate here happening in my own city is that they are wasting money. FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, they're using money to shrink the roads, the size of the roads, to hopefully slow down traffic. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why are they doing that? They know in 10, 20 years, they're just going to spend more money to expand it again, right?
Right.
I think that's the wrong direction. I think it's unfortunately they're spending money just because it sounds good. Like, oh, we're going to save lives, right? Because people are crossing the traffic, the road. They're dying. We had 2 deaths, I think, last year in my city due to pedestrians getting hit crossing the road. So I think it's a kind of feel good measure, like the bill I mentioned before, the Parkland bill to have all these anti Second Amendment laws. I think they passed it because it was a feel good thing. It felt good, but did it actually solve anything? I would
Right.
argue so.
Awesome. All right, let's take a look at one more from Bill Partington, then we'll jump over to the Democratic candidate here. So let's see here. This one's education is a big deal right now. I just as the chair here in Duval, I just hosted or we just hosted a forum for our candidates that were running for school board. And that went pretty well, but people are talking a lot about education here in Florida. So here he says, prioritize defending against any imposition of leftist ideologies, ensuring a balanced and inclusive curriculum that respects the diversity of perspectives, but also upholds the rights of parents to be active stakeholders in their children's education. Now, as a rule of thumb, libertarians fall on the line of abolish the Department of Education, both at the state level and at the federal level. So while we might want that in the interim, what would you do or not do? Again, we don't necessarily have to attack him per se, but we could just talk about the ideas. Like, what would you support? What do you see the problems? Kind of give me your vision for dealing with education in Florida.
Money follows the student. In my
Okay.
county, the budget is 1.4 billion, I believe, for the school board, and we have about 66,000 students. So if I'm doing my live, I did this before, but it comes out to be about 20,000 and change per student
Mhm.
per year. But I would take that, and again, I'm stealing this from Larry Sharp, so I'm a disciple of the great libertarian Larry
Sure.
Sharp. Uh, you would take that, it'd be mobile. If you wanted to put that towards public school, great. Put it towards public school. If we want to do private school, put it towards private school. And the tuition will probably cost $20,000 per year, right? Or you could do it homeschooling. So someone could
Mhm.
a mother or father could actually stay at home and they would have $20,000 to help support them, homeschooling their child. And from what I've heard, homeschooling kids get, are more higher educated then they learn more than the people in public schools. I'm not putting people in public schools down. I actually grew up. I went to school in Duval County, so I'm a product of the public school system in Duval County. Um, but I think it should be mobile. And when I was collecting petitions for my first three campaigns, I did a lot of it outside of the library. Now, what a library is also used for is tutoring. Like there would
Mhm.
be tutors coming in and out of there all the time, and they would say like, "Oh, well, I'm a teacher also, but I need to do this on the side to make a little bit extra money." Imagine if teachers were allowed to do that, like, and that was normalized, right? So
Mhm.
if you could have like three students, yeah, three students at $20,000 a year, you're making 60 grand. You can work around their parents and that kid's schedule. If like nighttime's better for them, great. Do 7 till 9 p.m. Or if weekends, great. Do Saturday from noon until 6 or whatever. I think it gives a lot more opportunity to. What I see a lot of homeschool parents do is go to go to the local um, what's it called, like the local park or something,
Right.
and your local marine science center. You learn about art and whatever by actually seeing it, being around in your community. I think it's a great thing, and I remember growing up in my school in Duval County, where there would be like one trouble child, and they put him in his class, and half the time, 20 minutes of the class time, he's disrupting things, and
Right.
meanwhile, the other whatever 29 students aren't learning a damn thing. All they're
Right.
seeing is a kid being punished, like literally being taken into the closet and the door shut, and you can hear him screaming, and there's like some mental issues going on. Probably should be more one-on-one there, and other kids, should have some time to learn. I know that might sound horrible or whatever, but I mean, it's school is supposed to be for education, so let's
Right.
educate. I mean, there's still people today that graduate high school, 13 years of education here in Florida, and they don't know how to read, which is just amazing to me. So I'd very much like to give that opportunity for people to take their own money, go to a special school if they need to, or go homeschool if they need to, or work with someone about tutoring out like Uber teachers, special hours that work for their family. Yeah, or public schools, or leave it the same. That's an option too.
Okay.
One thing I also want to go on, if you don't mind me continuing here.
Yeah, go
Uh,
right ahead.
yeah, I want to steal another thing from Larry Sharp. What he was saying was in the 11th and 12th grade years, the last 2 years of school, you're basically prepping for college. You're taking tests to kind of take a test, right? So you get graduate college. And I remember that, like, that's what I did. It was all basically teaching to a test. You're memorizing things. You're not actually learning anything. I
Mhm.
learned Spanish my last 2 years. I'll put it that way. I learned a little bit of Spanish, but that's about it. So what he won't recommend, and I've adopted as part of my platform, is you would basically be able to go do training or entrepreneurship or whatever. You would have that money at $20,000 or a little bit less than that, because we're trying to save tax dollars too. So you'd have, like, let's just say $15,000 per year per student to go start your own business if you want to. If you want to start your own, like, food truck or whatever, here's $15,000 to kind of lease or loan or whatever a food truck, and you can go try that out if you want to. Or you could maybe start college with that $15,000. Start your first year of college, or stay in high school. Again, I'm not trying to take away that option.
Right.
Just want to make more options available. Or become an electrician. The what is it called? STEM. You could be,
Right.
an electrician. Learn how to again. It's entrepreneurship. It's Uber. Do what you want. And I think, as much money as we pay plumbers, electricians, and all that, there's got to be a market out there for more of them, so that prices come down.
Gotcha. So I want to then you know what? Let me pull that question right. I had a question queued up here. So then that Liberty lady asked, then does Joe agree with school choice? I presume it sounds like you explicitly do agree with school choice.
Yeah, it's school choice and then some. Like right now, we have school choice that I believe, if I understand the law correctly, it's basically you still have to live in a certain zip code. If I'm not mistaken, honestly, I don't know, but I believe that's what the new law changed to. Because
Okay.
there's a wait list for schools. Like if there's a capacity at a school, you can't go in there, right? So you're just
Mhm.
on a list. So I would like to, open it up even more. Again, like tutoring and whatever. So yes, to answer Liberty Lady, and then more. So if they
Gotcha.
really want to get out of their own school there, offer something else. Offer tutoring, Uber tutoring, something like that. And I'm sure that'll pop up like crazy, because every when I was talking to petitions, every tutor I talked to, I would ask them. I got personal. I was like, "Are you making more money doing this tutoring than school?" They're like, "Absolutely." And I said, "Do you prefer this?" And almost all of them said yes. It was just to kind of, it's not really off topic here, but kind of.
Right.
I would ask them, like, what's one thing you would change? Obviously, the pay was top of anything. Like anyone at any job wants more pay as their top issue. The second one was administration. They have so many administrators, like, kind of on their backs. They kind of want to not have
Mhm.
that. And I agree with them. I think we could lower the cost significantly. I think, again, like, if our dollars in education are not going towards directly educating, then I don't want to call it a waste, but because I know some admin is needed, but I'm pretty sure, and I've not did a deep dive into the school budget, but I think we could probably find some things that could be uh, funds allocated elsewhere. I'll put it that way.
Gotcha. All right. So let's take a look at your other opponent, John Navarro. And his is a little bit more vague. So we're gonna put it up on the screen here, and we'll do our best to kind of get through it. So under his, so here's his website, principles and priorities. He's a little bit more vague. So he says during each regular session, thousands of bills are introduced in the Florida House of Representatives. He's absolutely correct on that.
Right.
As a practical matter, I can't present voters with a comprehensive list of policy proposals, but I can tell you how I will make decisions about bills to vote for or to co-sponsor. I'm willing to support bills that, and I'll just read the boldface, just the highlights here. Focus on the future, not the past. Help the needy, not the greedy. Include, not exclude. Make real change, not publicity stunts. Focus on tangible results, not cultural war nonsense. So sounds like he's got somebody that's likes to play a little fun with the words here. Um, so on the help the needy, not the greedy, he says our wealthy residents have benefited from decades of subsidies and free rides at the cost of the other 99% of Floridians. I'm going to be skeptical of claims that we must do more for the mansions and mega yachts crowd as long as millions of Floridians go without educational opportunities, shelter, food, or medical care on a regular basis. So that's kind of vague. It's not really a policy prescription exactly, but how would you respond to that? I can read it again if you'd like.
I'm not going to make you read that again, but yeah,
Okay.
you're right. I would agree with your with your take on that. That it's pretty broad. One thing he did point out, and the same thing that Bill Partington, the
Mhm.
Republican candidate, pointed out, was cultural war issues. And that, sadly, the last few years, and here in Florida, the state government has been focused on culture war. And I'm not a fan of that. I think government, this is going to be a surprise to literally no one, but I think the government should be out of, well, I should say libertarians. Surprise no libertarians, but I think the government should be out of the culture war. I don't think we
Mhm.
should be legislating culture stuff. Like, what really annoyed me was the government essentially punishing Disney for them just exercising First Amendment, right?
Right.
For the quote unquote "Don't Say Gay" bill, which, by the way, that bill was very vague. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm sure you read that one, but it was very vague. I mean, what really came out to me in that bill was like, what is teacher instruction? There's
Right.
not defined, right? So it could have been anything. Could be they just happen to say like, you know, like if they were gay, like, and the student asked like a picture, like, why are you in a picture with another guy? Like, are they allowed to say, is it teacher instruction? They say like, oh, that's my husband or something.
Right.
So I don't know. It was very vague and unenforceable, frankly. It's like putting a student's word against the teacher's, and I think it's really, you're going to get more of the same, honestly, with those guys. And by the way, I actually know John Navarro. I ran against, or I didn't run against him, but he ran for this seat last time, and he's a great guy. Like, I like him a lot. The same thing with Bill Parkinson. Like, I've known him personally. Not like we're not friends or anything, but I've known him. I actually met him at. I'm not gonna say where, but like I know him through an old friend. So I mean, they're both nice guys personally, but policy wise, man, I think you're just going to get more of the same when it comes to Republicans and Democrats in general here. And I'm not trying to be that. Like, I'm trying to be something different. I'm trying to get government to not force you to live life based on the ideologies of the Republicans or Democrats. More government here, just culture war stuff. I'm not sure if I even answered your question there, but
Well, it was kind of open-ended in a sense because, again, he's not specifically saying, "I will do this," or "I will do that," and he's just like, "Well, bills that support this kind of, concept or something." So it's kind of vague,
right.
and it's unclear exactly what he's running on. So let's do that. What are you running on? Like, when you talk to a voter, if I'm a voter and I'm like, "Joe, what are you gonna do for me if I'm, a Volusia County voter?" What are you gonna do for me? Why should I vote for you?
Yeah. So what
What's
I'll
your
do
answer?
for you is I'll take. I don't want the government to stop you from doing whatever you want to do.
Mhm.
I want to take over the government to leave you alone. If I get elected, I'm not going to magically be smart enough to make better decisions in your life than you are, right? So I'm gonna, like, whenever a bill comes up to me, I'm gonna be like, well, am I making a decision for voter A? Well, I'm gonna put that back into voter A's hands to decision make. So I'll vote against the bill or in favor of a bill if it replaces government with
Mhm.
voter A. Put decision back in your life.
Got it. Alright. Are there any particular issues that you really would like to tackle?
A
Like,
lot of
very specifically.
Yeah, a lot of them, honestly. If I'm being selfish here, I'm gonna be very selfish here. It's not really something I've heard outside of people asking or whatever. But I'm gonna be selfish first, because I do want to make a point of getting this out there, because I think people need to start learning, thinking about this, at least, like, plant a seed here.
Mhm.
We have political parties, private organizations, which you and I both belong to, the Libertarian
Right.
Party, but they are on the ballot. They're on we have government registration. Like, we are registered through the government to be the
Mhm.
Libertarian Party, right?
Right.
Also privately, but like also through the government. We're running as a private, well, I am running as a private organization, but you're the leader of your organization there in Duval County. So I think that's fine. I think it's okay getting an endorsement from the Libertarian Party, having a club in the Libertarian Party club over there. But I don't think it should go through the government. I don't think we should have taxpayer-funded partisan elections for private organizations. I mean, what if Pepsi and Coke decided, taxpayers, you're going to fund our election for who our CEOs or district representatives are? We'd all be like, no, we're not going to do that. You guys do that in house. So that should be the same thing with political parties. Um, and what I would do is, unfortunately, ranked choice voting was criminalized here. Not criminalized, but it was basically made. I don't know how else to say it. I guess decriminalized or whatever. But
Mhm.
basically, we're not allowed to have ranked choice voting here in the state of Florida as of a few years ago. So what I would do is try to reverse that, so that we would save money by not having a primary election. It's always very low. I'm sure you've seen very low voter turnout in primary elections. So all the qualifying candidates pay the same fee or do the same thing to qualify. They should be in front of the voters, and the voters should have the most amount of choice on the general election ballot where most voters participate. So I would, abolish or remove the partisan voter registration and partisan elections. So every candidate will be, nonpartisan. Every election will be nonpartisan, and we have ranked choice voting on the general election ballot. What that will do is free up, you and I, really, frankly, in our own affiliates, to go out and endorse and interview whatever candidates we want. Maybe I'm not the most libertarian candidate. Maybe Bill Partington is. Maybe John Navarre is, and the local party here wants to endorse, John Navarre because he's the most libertarian. And then you would get candidates that want to seek out those endorsements from those organizations, private organizations. So if I'm being selfish, that would be one of them. But what I've heard from a lot of people is division. I mean, and libertarians are no stranger to division, right? But they want people to stop fighting in government or whatever. So I would try to work with, not try to dunk on or try to fight a culture war. The leftists, want this, so I'm going to make a law that overcorrects to the right or something like that. I'm going to be like, well, what's common sense? Let's come to the table here. What's something that makes sense here? So to kind of put an issue to an issue face to that ideology, I guess, or approach would be like cannabis. Do we really want people? By the way, there's a ballot measure, statewide ballot measure that's going to be on a ballot here about effectively decriminalizing or legalizing, I should say, a small amount of cannabis. You sell it or buy it in retail stores. But until that happens, assuming it's not
for recreation.
Recreational. Right, correct.
For recreation. It's currently for anybody that might be tuning in that's not in Florida and maybe unfamiliar. We have it for medicinal purposes, and that was actually passed by voters 2 years ago. Can't remember exactly when. I can't remember, but it was passed. It was passed by voters a while back. So we have it for medicinal purposes, and now there is a ballot measure to make it for recreational purposes. And I believe a number of Republicans have come out. I think Tim Scott was one of them. He came out and he said, "I explicitly will oppose this because apparently he had a brother that was that ended up dying because of addiction."
Rick Scott, the current U.S. Senate candidate. Which, by the way, he was the governor that signed the bill, SB 7026, the Parkland one, and he ended up winning the U.S. Senate campaign that election, literally 6 months later. And I'm so glad we have a libertarian running for U.S. Senate here in Florida, Fina Benowen. She's a great candidate. She's run for U.S. Senate before. I can't wait to vote for her. I think she'll be very good compared to Rick Scott. So I'm fully, Fina Benowen fan over here.
Awesome.
But to get to what we're talking about before. Okay. Yeah. So when I first got involved in the local politics here, the Libertarian Party of Volusia County, 7 or so years ago, there was a libertarian that literally got legislation done, and I forget what city it was, either New Smyrna Beach or Edgewater, submitted it to her city commission and actually got them to decriminalize. Basically, it would become a citation, like a $77. I'm forgetting the amount. So again, 7 years ago. But basically, it would be like a $77 or $77 citation, basically, instead of going to jail. Now, I'm a libertarian who comes from the point of perspective of I don't want government to hurt people. So when it comes to just telling people, and that makes sense, right? When you're telling the regular person, do you want government to hurt people? Well, 80% at least are going to say no. So I'm like, okay, well, do we really want to put someone in jail, away from their family, take up taxpayer money for courts, for enforcement, for incarceration? This person could lose their jobs. Now they're on welfare, so there's additional costs there. Is it worth it for someone that has a little amount of weed on them? I think most people would agree no, and we'll find out here in November. But I think having that conversation, getting to all those points across, would maybe people just don't even think about that, So if I could just have 5-minute conversation with the state officials out there and just fix that one issue for the year, it would be a win. Like that would be incredible if we could just stop putting people in jail for small amount of cannabis. Like I researched this again in my first campaign, and I still say it to this day. If Florida was its own country, we would have the highest incarceration rate in the world.
Hmm.
Now, you can't call ourselves the free state. We both live in Florida. We can't call it the free state of Florida if that's the fact.
Right. Well,
So
don't tell our peers up in New Hampshire that, because they will surely gloat over it.
yeah, I'm sure, I'm sure they would. I know it's always like Florida and New Hampshire kind of fighting over the most freest state. I'm like,
Right.
I don't live in New Hampshire. I don't know what their laws are there, but I'll tell you, Florida is not going in the free direction.
It really isn't actually, and people that watch the show, I want to let you know that I'll be putting out on display some of these bills that a lot of people have lauded, and they've been like, "Oh, these are great bills," and they're going to help us out, and then find out that they're being challenged by the judicial branch, by the courts. And so even if you support them, which I generally don't, but even if you did, thinking that these are benefits to making Florida more free, it turns out that a lot of them actually get rejected in the long run.
That's true. And someone was saying, I saw it, I think this morning or last night, someone was saying about something about transgender issue was basically thrown out by the federal courts.
Yep.
I think yesterday. I forget the details. I don't read the story, but I saw it, just read the headline there. But it's something that Florida state law got
I
overturned.
did a whole show yesterday on it. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah, if anybody wants, go check it out. I actually talk about the bill. I talk about the 105 page, where the federal judge wrote a 105-page decision on why he basically blocked the bill. Very interesting details.
yeah, and I appreciate you doing that. So I know you've done that in the past. So you're doing kind of my work for me, and I could just watch you for an hour. Watch Liberty Dad for an hour, and
Right.
I'll know about a bill. So thank you for reading it. Thank you for doing more work than probably 80% of our state legislatures do. I can
Right.
guarantee some of them don't read a bill. Like
Oh
there's a state representative with regarding the SB 7026 again. I love this bill because it's so fascinating how much hypocrisy is there. So there's this Republican that voted in favor of that bill, of anti-Second Amendment bill,
yeah.
and,
Mhm.
and he mentioned like how he's pro Second Amendment on social media, and I said like, no, you're not. Like you voted in favor of this bill that did this thing. He said, no,
Right.
I didn't. He actually replied to me, which I was shocked. But then I had like screenshots of him voting in favor of it, the bill number, and then like the actual article in the bill, the line in the bill that said we're raising the age of 21 or whatever. And he even said like no after that. I'm like, oh my god, dude! Like I'm literally just telling you the
Right.
facts. It's not my opinion. These are facts. And then like later, he actually co-sponsored a bill to reduce the age back to 18. So to me, that's proof that he didn't read the bill.
Right. Absolutely. All right. We got a question from one of the audience members here, that Liberty lady, and we put it up on the screen, and I'll read it out loud for you. She says, Joe, can you confirm your new boundary lines for your area, since I believe it changed since your last election?
Yes, it did. And actually, you had it up earlier. I'm not sure if
Yes.
you, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but if you still have it queued up, there is that map is the new district line. So I'm sorry if you put you on the spot here, but
Oh, we're good
yeah,
right there.
that's it. So the north end is the Volusia Flagler County line. The east end is obviously the ocean. The west end is, I believe, State Road 11, if I'm not mistaken, or 17. And that basically goes out to like the land. It cuts short before the land. That's all like just basically trees out there. And then the south side covers all of Daytona Beach. And South Daytona, it stops just north of Port Orange, and all of the beach side of the Daytona Beach and Orange by the Sea. And Holly Hill. I don't want to forget them, but that's the only ones I didn't name. Holly Hill. So yeah, that's for those. And I know this probably means nothing to anyone outside of the district or outside of Volusia County, but for those inside of Volusia County, that would be in your district there. And we actually have a candidate on the west side. So if you're in DeLand or Deltona, we have Matt Johnson running there. He's a
Mhm.
libertarian. I think he's a better libertarian than I am, frankly. So you're not going to hear too many libertarians saying that. But I think
Right.
he's
Right. That's a rarity
yeah,
there.
yeah, I think he's a great libertarian. He's ran for city commission before. I think he's a very reasonable person. So, if you live on more to the west side of the county in Volusia, check out Matt Johnson. So, don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you happen to have Matt for flhouse.com is his. So
Gotcha. I don't have a way to put it up on the screen, but
I'll try to go
um,
back. I'll try to drop Fina and Matt's information. I'll go back to all your socials and put
yep.
in their information there, so voters can, across Florida, can vote for Fina Bonoan. So yeah.
All right, awesome. So let's get your final words. What's the last thing? How do people find you? Right. So give us, any final words that you have. Let people know where they can find you, where they should go, and then I'll toss you in the backstage, and then I'll wrap up the show.
All right. Yeah. So right now, between websites, I had a website for about like 5.5 years, 6 years between my first three campaigns. But our state affiliate, the Libertarian Party of Florida, recently had websites for candidates. So,
Mhm.
but my domain URL still belongs to my former, host or whatever. So I'm kind of in the middle of, excuse me, transitioning that right now. So I don't have a website quite yet to point people to, but I am active on social media. If people want to go to, excuse me, Facebook.com/Joe Hannoush, and my name is right there, or Twitter, Joe Hannoush, or yeah, it would be X, I guess, X.com/Joe Hannoush. My Instagram is Joe Hannoush 2024. So those would be the socials there, and I usually have a pinned post on the Twitter and Facebook in case people want to donate to help the campaign out. And yeah, people could ask me questions, and I'm happy to answer.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. I'm going to put you backstage for just a second while I close the show. So hold tight there for just a moment. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. Make sure that if you are in this area, that you do your best to support Joe, whether it's through a vote, maybe you donate some money, or maybe you just tell your friends and family that, hey, there is another option on the ballot. You don't have to accept the same two parties that do the same things over and over and over again. You have another choice. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern, for an informed discussion on politics and culture. And make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer, my Rumble channel. You can go to youtube.libertydad.com or rumble.libertydad.com. While you're there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. Last but not least, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time.